This is the Hungarian peg doll loom. It's a tradition that never made it to America. I think there's been a few other people that have experimented with it here and there, but it's only forgotten here. It's a device from Eastern Europe. The peg doll loom, the important thing to remember about this sweet little peg doll loom, I'm going to weave on it a little bit. I'm going to talk about how you can weave on it and the way that you have to warp it. But the thing to remember about this is this segmented loom that comes apart just like this. So when I'm done weaving, I would take the top section loose with a little hook, a little crochet hook, take the top piece off, then I would take the bottom loops loose from the bottom pegs, and there's 16 pegs top and bottom on this, and then it just slides, the weaving then just slides right off of here. The important thing about these little looms is not necessarily the folk tradition of making little dolls and little finger puppets in Eastern Europe. The important thing about these looms is that these were, in a much larger form, were used for making bags and, more importantly, sleeves and leg warmers for the men that did that drove the wagons in the cold mountains of Eastern Europe. So I just imagine that a tapestry woven leg warmer, I'm weaving this little weaving in tapestry form, I'm going to weave on that for a little bit, but I just imagine that the tapestry woven leg warmer, tapestry woven brightly colored sleeve on a shirt would have been worth their weight in gold. And I've even heard from some of my contacts in Eastern Europe, I've even heard rumors, I don't believe anybody's found one, but there were rumors that there was actually one of these peg looms, these circular peg looms, was big enough to actually make the body of a sweater. So instead of weaving or crocheting, the folks in Hungary devised a weaving tradition that I think is unique in the world. No matter how you lay the pegs out, if you put an odd number of pegs or an even number of pegs, the way that you loop over the top is always going to result in an even number. So you need to add an extra thread and let that spread out. The extra thread just goes over one more extra loop whenever you do your warp, and that makes 33 threads. There's 16 pegs on my little doll looms, and you put an extra thread on there and it makes 33. And what that does is, it's just like in basket weaving, it makes a perfect weave all the way around and around and around and around, and you go and I'm going to weave on this here in just a second. I've laid this in tapestry form with a bunch of different tapestry stitches, and if you see the hats and some of the woven devices from Hungary, you'll see what we classically in tapestry call pick and pick, but you're not picking here, you're going around and around. So what I did to make this happen is I followed two needles around and around to lay, and it's a little bit it's not fun to do, but you can lay a what we call pick and pick in tapestry. You can lay a pick and pick stitch to make all sorts of patterns. So I'm going to weave on this for a little bit. When you're done, again, you just take the loops loose from the top. Top comes off. Take the loops from the bottom off, and the little weaving just slides right off of the structure of the loom. So it's got a peg. Even the big ones are made like this. And again, remember, this little toy loom is a cultural remembrance of a very important loom in textile history, and that's the sleeve loom and the leg warmer loom. Again, and there's also a rumor, I'm going to weave on this for a little bit. There's also the rumor of the very large loom that would have made the body of a sweater. And I just imagine that the weaver that knows what they're doing, if you had all wool and you knew how to lay a weft face stitch, you probably there probably wouldn't be a warmer sweater that you could find. So I'm leaving, just like in tapestry, I'm leaving a lot of extra thread there. I'm making a loop before I lay the weft, because if you don't, this will pull in. So, and you don't want this to pull in the center and be smaller, because I'm gonna actually make a bag out of this. I'm gonna try and make a phone case with this just to see how that would work. I'm gonna stop weaving about here. And I'm going to tie the warp threads off 2 at a time all the way around, and then take these loose. The neat thing about a loom made like this, especially with this weft face on here, is whenever I take these off the peg, they're not loose. They're woven in with a tabby weave into the warp with the weft. These are going to be self-finishing, and those little loops will close because there's enough play in the weft face to go ahead and fill those little pegs in, the little loops that the pegs leave whenever we pull this off the loom. So you just go round and around and pick your colors and pick your stitches. For the new colors, when I add a new color, I've just been tying on to the end and keep going, and put the ends of the knot on the inside. I like to weave in tapestry about 4 yards of yarn at a time, with a big tapestry needle. This is just a 4-inch tapestry needle, but it works fine for this little loom. And so I weave about 4 yards of yarn at a time, and on this loom, each one of these color sections is about 4. It's about 4 yards. That's about 4 yards. That's about 4 yards. And I've tried different weights of yarn just to see, you know, if it would maintain and keep the weft face. I'm going around about 1/3 of the stitches each time. It seems like about the max amount that you can get. And I've already sold as many of these looms as I've made. There's something that no one's seen before here in America. So it's fun to find a tool like this and bring it to life in a tool that's going to make for a lot of experimentation. I think that I'd love to see this become a living tradition in the United States, and to see other people start making these looms. On all of my looms and fiber arts tools that I make, I don't ever patent, I don't ever copyright, I don't ever try to do any of that, because I want to see these forgotten things become living history. And besides, I didn't make this up. And even though you probably could use a lawyer to fix it where quote unquote no one else was supposed to make them, that's not my way. And the design's open, it's fairly easy to figure out how to do, and hopefully some other people will try and make them, and we'll get enough folks in the textile arts to experiment with these and come up with some new ideas and new possibilities for what you can do with these looms. One of the really cool things that I've seen is that there's also a peg loom that translates into, and I'm sure this isn't what it actually means in Hungarian, but there's a loom in Poland and Hungary that translates into a paw, P-A-W loom, and it, just like you would think that it would mean, it's for making mittens for the drivers, for the wagon drivers. And there's a big paw loom and there's a little paw loom, and the big one is for making the hand, and then the little tiny one is and it basically works just like this loom, and then but it's flat. And then the little tiny one is for making the thumb, and then you just sew the thumb in. And again, there's no crocheting, no knitting, none of that stuff there. That was all, they figured out how to weave these things. And I think it's the coolest thing that basically it gets to the same end to make a very warm garment for the mountain and winter conditions. Now there's also another tool for making hats, and that hat is called, of all darn things, again, it translates into, I'm not sure what it actually means in Hungarian, so the literal translation is it's a Highlander trap. And a Highlander trap is, I may be tempted, I've been trying to find an image of the Highlander trap that's not got a leaving on it already, and I haven't been able to do that. But if I find a decent image where I feel like I can make one and I can understand how it was fixed to come apart so that you can get the hat off the loom, I certainly think that I may be making some of them also. So the Highlander trap is one to look for and go out and do research on. No one in the United States is making those, so it's an open market. I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to try them. It's a neat looking loom, and it makes a really cool looking hat. And then the paw loom is another one that's no one's making. As soon as I got these finished and I started weaving on this, it's like, all right, this is going to work. So I made some for sale. They've been sellout items. These were just listed. These are new, brand new made. The first prototype that I made the prototype so that the turning was stylish, and it doesn't match the ones I had seen from Eastern Europe, but I thought, oh, I'll make this a stylish turning and make it look good, right? Well, that was a mistake, because I can see now that the purpose, you'll notice that this loom is not made the same way that one is. The purpose of this long cylinder, top and bottom, is to help keep the structure of the tube that you're weaving, to help keep it flat so that it doesn't pull in, and you've just got a small area then to weave where you can weave. Another thing that I thought would be cool was to put a little knob on top of it so it looked good. Well, yeah, it looks good, but the problem is what I found myself wanting to do while I was weaving this is I wanted to turn this over and weave from the other direction. I can't do this with my loom, and I may end up cutting this little knob off of here so that I can, but with this loom you can weave from the bottom up, just like in tapestry on a pen loom in tapestry. Then you can turn it over and weave from the top down and meet in the middle, and it's a lot easier to fill this weaving in, fill this weft face weaving in, if you can meet in the middle rather than trying to weave all the way to the top, which you'll never accomplish. You'll never get there. So just some thoughts here. I'm gonna, just like on a tapestry, on a pen loom in tapestry, I'm gonna take this, I'm only gonna do another couple inches here in my weaving, and I'm gonna take this off by removing the loops from the top, but I'm not gonna weave all the way to the top with this little case. I want, like I said, I want to try and figure out some way to make a little foam case, maybe with some like suede leather for a little flap on the top, and maybe a little suede leather little loop at the bottom, kind of probably flatten it out. These will come off two at a time, and then I can cut these, and then I can tie these off, because each one is on the opposite sides of the shed for each pair. And when you do that, when I tie these off, then that'll cinch that down where that tube will be a very strongly structured woven item from top to bottom. And the secret here is that I've used the same thing that we use in my tapestry classes. I've used 8/4 cotton rug warp that is super strong. The individual threads of that is super strong. So 33 threads of this together would make an amazingly strong weaving once this comes off the loom. And I tie the top and bottom, the top threads the way that we basically tie a rug off. Now, the same way, if I did weave all the way to the top and I wanted to make a tube, these would be self-finishing at the top also, just like the bottom. And what the ladies they're using these looms right now for is making toys, or they make little dolls. So you can leave a cinch thread in here, so a flat bottom on the round cylinder leaves a cinch thread here for a dress. Leave a cinch thread here for the head. Maybe use some tan colored yarn for the head, and then you would basically end up weaving kind of a wild hairdo on top, and they make cute little dolls. So if you go out and search, if you go out and do a Google search or an AI search for peg doll loom or sleeve doll loom, they're also called, they'll come back with some of these looms that have been made in Eastern Europe, plus it'll come back with some of the little dolls that people have made with these. So it's a cute little loom. It's a fun little weaving project, and I'll be making these going forward. I've already got a dozen of them out in the wild right now, and I'm looking forward to. And I've got a couple of my experimenters, my prototyping folks have these. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they end up A, weaving on it, and then B, what they end up doing with their weavings. So again, I'm just doing a simple tabby weave, under one and over one, round and around. Got 33 threads on there, so just like a basket, it weaves out just perfectly. And I leave enough of a loop so that I can lay a tabby. Lay a weft face tabby, just like we do in tapestry.